What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So yesterday we got some big news on the Torchlight Infinite front. So last week they had like a little teaser of their new season, which, by the way, if you haven't been playing Torchlight Infinite or you haven't checked out their seasons, they're actually really well put together. I've very much enjoyed what they've been putting out so far. Outside of the monetization, that is what it is with the pack spirits and all of that, but the actual gameplay mechanics, all of those things, they've been pretty well put together. The City of Eterna one, which was season 2, worked really well, and that's actually moving to core, which is really cool. I'm glad I'm going to continue to be able to play that game mode. But anyway, let's talk about what we got here. Okay, so Torchlight Infinite revealed that its new season is going to be coming on December 28th, and guys, to be frankly, it's a doozy. So we have a new mechanic that's coming with the season, and it revolves around balancing dreams and nightmares, both in missions and in a new crafting system. So let's start there first. So for the missions, when you create a new seasonal hero, you're going to see lotus flowers out in the world, on missions, all of that fun stuff. When you interact with these flowers, you can choose your potential reward called a dream bubble. Now, you want to pay attention, because as you're going through and you're picking these, there are also going to be nightmare modifiers tied to these objectives. And these are going to come into play later. We'll talk about these down the road, but you do want to pay attention to these. Now, as you go and complete these events, like I said, you're going to earn dream bubbles. These dream bubbles are essentially the rewards for completing the objective. But there's a twist here, right? There always is. There's always a catch. There is a risk-reward system built in, per usual. So once you clear the objective, you have a choice to either claim the rewards or risk taking on another dream for an even bigger payout. Now, the risk here is that the more you continue to double down, the higher risk you have of rolling a nightmare. Now, these nightmares are brutal events, and this, of course, is coming from the devs, right? They're going to hype it up, but these are apparently brutal events that have the previously chosen modifiers all stacked up against you. And you need to go through and you need to tear out the roots, which essentially you have to destroy these totems. They look like dream roots. And if you die, you're going to lose one of your rewards. You have 6 chances to clear the nightmare. Outside of that, if you die 6 times, you fail. But every time you die, you lose one of the potential rewards. Now, what we don't know is if these rewards are random or if these rewards are in chronological order, where you lose the most recent one first, all the way back to only having the most basic rewards. We're not entirely sure. We'll have to get our hands on it. So that's the primary season mechanic for gameplay, but they did surprise me and probably some other people with a new crafting mechanic called Dream Interpretation. Now, this is going to allow you to apply new base affixes to items, and these can be even like specific legendary affixes. So they can be incredibly powerful. You can do basic ones, you can do legendary ones. Now, they're going to take different requirements in order to apply these, but the possibility is there. So some examples they gave were the Warden Beast Pin for summon builds. They showed off this Dex Pistol for dexterity builds. Adding these affixes into the item, like I mentioned, does come at a cost, and these are the legendary ones specifically. So the legendary ones are going to require a new currency called Profound Dream Talking, and this drops from the new boss, which is the Sun Queen Paloma. Now, following the theme, adding these cool new mods also come with an offsetting nightmare affix. So again, balancing out. You add a very powerful legendary affix, then you're going to get a pretty powerful nightmare affix that's also going to apply to your item. Now, these range from reducing the tiers of your affixes to completely replacing a slot with a null affix called a blemish, which then reduces the overall power of the item. So for me, this sounds like players are going to come up with some pretty incredibly broken items right out of the gate. I never doubt the community and what they're able to just make happen. I mean, it's just crazy. So this entire mechanic sounds pretty cool. I'll be diving in and taking a look. So speaking of items, there are 3 new legendary items to chase. So one, you have Enamor. This is a belt that's going to provide bonuses and buffs based upon certain criteria. Like, for instance, gaining an extra buff for each legendary item, for each blemish. So you can take those blemishes, which are the nightmare affixes, and you can instead turn them into a strength using this belt, which I'm guessing is what the devs want you to do. Be okay with having some blemishes and use this belt in order to offset some of those. Now you also have the Thornbearer's Shacklers, which are boots that give large bonuses based upon how far you travel. So they mentioned if you use like a traversal skill and you teleport forward like 10 meters, then you get a buff every 2 meters you travel, so therefore you'll have a stack of 5. And then the last one is Butterfly Wings. So this is a shield that's going to give buffs based upon stat allocations. So for instance, you can get a huge damage boost based upon your evasion, and this works really well with the new hero, which we'll be covering here shortly. Now, like I mentioned earlier, when I talked about the Profound Dream Talking drop, these 3 legendary items will also be dropped from that end-game boss, Queen of the Sun Paloma. Now, in order to take on Queen of the Sun, you're going to require another drop called Queen's Grace. Once you get Queen's Grace, you'll be able to access her and be able to actually go in and challenge her for a chance at these new pieces of loot. Now, outside of the loot, we also have some new skills to use. So one, we have Star Stalker. This one looks interesting. So you're going to be able to activate this ability to then launch a projectile that'll track elites on the map. It'll also create an area, and as long as you stay close to this area, you're going to get a large increase to your damage over time damage. Now, when the star gets close to an elite, it's going to stick to them like a sticky grenade until they die or until the duration ends. So again, if you're a damage over time build, this is going to be a really good one to take a look at. Next is Harmonious Field. This is a channeled skill. This is going to give a field that increases your sentry damage, and then when you reach max stacks, it also increases the duration of the sentry. Next, we have Whirlwind Blade. This is a boomerang-like skill. It's going to throw out a blade, penetrate automatically, and then it'll fly a fixed distance, spin for a set duration, and then return back to you. Now, this is cool because this is actually buffed by cast speed. So if you want to have more durations and more spin cycles, then cast speed bonuses are what you're going to want to stack. Lightning Beam was the most interesting one for me so far. Like, this was one I could actually see myself building around. So you're going to click the skill to unleash a lightning beam that'll then follow the player and deal damage. The gameplay clip they showed was really, really cool. I'm very interested in seeing how this is going to work and how much it's going to take to get it to work, because this thing looks fantastic. You can move quick through the map, you're going to deal damage, it's lightning, so you can get some easy lightning pin. I'm really looking forward to this. Okay, so that's all of the new stuff other than the new hero. So let's talk about the new hero. So the new hero is the Lightbringer Rosa character, who is a sword and shield hero that specializes in survival. Her unique trait is something called Holy Domain, which will pull enemies towards you. You can cast Holy Domain as you block attacks, so you block attacks. You build up a buff called Murderous Intent. Once you reach 10 stacks of Murderous Intent, Holy Domain is able to be cast. You cast it, it pulls all the enemies in, and there are some different things you can do to it, right? As you go through and you level up and you get new traits and things like that, you can make it so as you move, it's going to continuously pull enemies towards you. You can have it so you can cast it at a location. So there's all different ways of doing this. To me, this doesn't sound like a super appealing playstyle. I know there's some people out there that really love it, but a passive aggro vortex doesn't really kind of jive with me. It definitely fills a playstyle void the game has, which is sword and board, but to me, this is probably a hero I'll pass on until I learn more. And even so, if I do learn more, it might just not be something that I want to actually go into and spend money on. So that is something to consider as well. So outside of all of these kind of big announcements, they did touch on some really great quality of life stuff. So one, they added customizable loot filters. So now you have a fully, deeply customizable set of loot filters that you can save that actually work. So before, if you remember, you sort of had 3, right? You had like basic, intermediate, and like expert or something like that. Now you can go through and say, I want to see these specific items with these affixes at this level, so on and so forth. So for those of you who've been waiting on customizable loot filters, those are now in the game. Trade House is now cross-regional, which is great. That's going to help with all the price gouging and all that fun stuff. And instead, it's going to give a bigger kind of market for players to engage in, which is fantastic. Solo self-found and hardcore modes have also been added. So for those of you who are really looking for SSF and hardcore, those are coming to the game, and you'll be able to create one with the new seasonal heroes or regular heroes, but they're coming with the new season. You can also now upload builds and share them in game. So instead of going out and having like a build tool outside on a third party, instead you can upload your build. It puts it on this nice, very readable card, and you can share it with a friend. You can share it in chat. That way you can easily click on it and go, okay, here's everything this person has, and here's how I can build this character out. You can now swap packed setups from the UI, just a quick, easy button. You click on it and you switch, rather than having to go through, click multiple times to get to the pack system, and then switch your packed plan there. Lastly, Netherrealm cards have been reworked to be more streamlined and less bulky. They did a lot of kind of talking on this particular subject, but ultimately it boiled down to, hey, we know things aren't working, so let's simplify it a little bit. The less useful cards are now gone. The more useful cards, we bumped up their variety, and we also give you more of them. They also are buffing the drop rate of tier 5 beacons, which is fantastic. So that way you don't have to go back to time mark 7 in order to farm beacons to then progress in time mark 8. Instead, you should get a decent chunk of them and be able to actually just progress through time mark 8. So big change, one that I'm very much looking forward to. Some other small changes, they sped up Path of the Brave, so the waves of enemies spawn a little bit quicker because people were doing too much damage. So that was a really good one. And then they also had a bunch of performance optimization they also talked about quite a bit. So if you're someone who kind of struggled to run the game or found some FPS drops or anything like that, then this is going to be something that you might want to come back and check out. So guys, overall, this looks like a really, really good season, and it looks like they're taking a lot of feedback from the players and injecting it back into the game, which is great to see. We got loot filters, which was a huge one. There's a lot of people I talk to that won't play the game because there's a ton of loot and they don't want to click through all the junk. They want to just see the things they need to see. So having those new loot filters is fantastic. Adding the new season mechanic, kind of balancing things out, the risk reward system, that seems to be a theme they continue to hammer. It was like that with the City of Eterna, and I believe it was like that with the first season as well. So they continue to kind of double down on that, which I really like. So guys, the new season is coming on December 28th. I'm curious if you guys are going to come out and play it. So I want to hear from you guys in the comments. Are you playing Torchlight Infinite? Is this a game you're interested in? And what do you think of the new season mechanic? As always, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Vulkan, and I'll talk to you guys next time.